marketing, and embedding it in the team. So we're talking before about growing the business in 130 countries. We didn't have the money to go around and visit each of the 130 countries to trial the software. So what we saw was that lots of backpackers actually had a healthcare background. So we sat down with backpackers, had
In
them
Melbourne?
test the product in Melbourne.
Yep.
And they tested the product for free, well, for the price of a beer. And then we knew that the product would work in that health system. And we had that confidence, because in healthcare, on a serious note, patient safety is the most important thing. So you can't just get a beta group of practices, for example, to use the software. This way we could manage patient risk, manage the product, and then grow. So we've had customers internationally from day one.
I just want to go back. Hang on a minute. Are you backpackers? Now, backpackers can be an extremely valuable resource, and I would argue that this country doesn't do it well, because there's a lot of backpackers that actually have a lot of talent that come
Absolutely.
here. But you're telling me that you have basically, out of 130 countries, maybe half of them are on the back of you having a beer with a backpacker.
Absolutely. The English-speaking ones, definitely. Also the Netherlands. And it's interesting because we're now starting to translate into different languages. And so we'll use international students who are obviously in need of cash to support the Google Translate, as well as backpackers. So it's really understanding where are the people with the skills, and then making it happen. And I think also you can do that through creating a sense of community in the customer base. So we always thought, myself and my business partner speak different languages, and we always thought Indonesian would be the first language that we translated the software into, because we both speak Indonesian. But no, that's not what happened. A few years ago, we woke up one morning, and Axel, who's a practitioner in Haarlem, in the Netherlands, not in the States, in the Netherlands, had translated parts of the software into Dutch, because he wanted the software that was patient-facing, either a prescription or a referral or an invoice, to be in Dutch. So then he translated for us, we put it into the software, and we did Khmer, we did all these other languages because people asked us to do that. Because we have good customer service and that sense of community, we could do that. And it really, well, obviously it saved us cost, but it meant we could grow in those markets as well.
Talking about growing, it's one thing to not have a physical presence, but have customers in the 130 companies. I keep saying companies.
I said that too. What's going on with us today?
Friday.
I did that too. Don't worry.
Tell us about setting up satellite offices, or
Yes.
going international. As a founder, well, I'd love to hear how you did it, but then also as a founder, it's one thing to have people in other offices that you can drop by and visit, or, on the same time zone. How do you get comfort around people being in a totally different country?
Languages,
But also just running your business in that way without your physical presence. Like, how did you do it? And then how do you actually learn to take your hands off and let them go?
Well, most founders are control freaks, so that's why they find it hard, myself included. When we were looking at it, we had to decide, do we set up through an outsourced agency, or do we hire people? And we decided to hire people because we wanted people in our Irish office to be as much a part of the team as people in the Melbourne office. So then that became about choosing the right people and having the right culture. Comes back to mission. And so what we did was, one of the guys who'd been in our business for a year, he went across to Ireland and set the Irish office up, set Halaxy up in Ireland.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if you go to the Irish office, they have the same jokes. Apparently it feels like being in our office in Melbourne, just in a different room. We have now, COVID has tested, the managing a global team. So we have Thursday team lunch, and if you win the weekly competition on Monday, you get to choose the cuisine for each country. And so previously it was which restaurant could we order from on Deliveroo. Now it's a cuisine such as Indian or comfort food, which was last week's. And so knowing that they're going to follow the same process as us is really, it's important. And so it's Friday. We have a Friday wind down, which is 4:30, 5 o'clock our time. It's breakfast time, their time. But that builds a personal connection. And it is like talking to somebody who's just next door. So being now remote from each other in Melbourne feels just like how Cork felt probably early on. So it's given us a little bit more empathy, I think.
No, that's amazing, because I think that this pandemic has given the communication audit to every company in the world as to that's just not external comms, but how they work internally. Does their structure support working through video and Zoom?
The interconnectivity.
Absolutely. And I think if there's any gaps, they're going to get exposed right now. You know, rising waters lift all ships. When the water goes out, you find out pretty quickly. I'm interested in, we were talking earlier about mission. I just want to drag it back to this. Apologies if you want to move on. Bad luck. Company A starts with a mission. Company B, their mission reveals itself over time where they go looking for it. Company C never has a mission. All totally fine scenarios. It seems to me you started with a mission. Is that a fair assessment? And if that's the case, yes, do you think you're prosecuting it? Is it happening how you thought it would?
Yeah, we're Company A in that example that you gave. Yes, intriguingly, the mission has always been the same, and what we're doing has always been the same. I think the pace and the prioritisation changes, and that's about good business management. You pick the winners, hopefully, between your parts. And so, yes, it's always been the same, which is interesting because I know most businesses it does change.
But because Alison actually has already given those examples of that my reason for mission being a good idea for the decision-making side of things. So you said, talking to backpackers rather than beta testing because of the risk from a patient perspective, because it's about making healthcare better. It wasn't a risk you were willing to take.
That's true.
Setting up offices with your own people and employing people to be
Culture.
Part of your own team that are employees. They are big decisions, and being able to always just go back to, is this fitting in with our reason for being, guides you along the way. So I think it sounds like you're doing a good job with the mission.
It does. Alison, as usual, we're running out of time, but I have one question I'd love to ask, because a business like your size that's grown as quickly as it has I imagine, a significant appetite for capital over time. Have you gone through the start? How have you funding it? How are you going about the next phase of growth, or up to now? Whatever you're happy to talk about. I know this is not something that we talk about publicly a lot, but you've actually gone through a pretty serious growth. I'd love to know how you've done it from that point of view.
Yeah, we self-funded at first, and for several years, 3 or 4 at least, Lockie and I didn't have a salary, so we lived somehow on air, and I'm not quite sure what. And then we started to hire people. We had some angel funding, and I'm always so grateful to people who invest early in a business. They're really investing and backing the founders, and it means so much. And then we've had a family office invest, and they now have 20% of the business. So what's really helpful with all of that is everyone is driven by the mission to make healthcare better.
I'd be interested to know where you're placed in the market, because I know you're not the only ones, and but you have been around a really long time. So how have you found, from a competitive angle and always focusing on the mission rather than what everyone around you is doing? How do you keep focused and block out that noise?
Yeah, fantastic question. I mean, it's a highly competitive market, just the practice side of things. In Australia, there are 131 competitors, the largest in Australia. We're not the most well known, and because we're a high growth venture, we focus on sales rather than brand building, and that means that we've got more effect and impact in the market, which is good. And it means that we can start to grow very, very quickly. Early on, when we saw that a competitor was doing X, it used to give us so much anxiety. Whereas now, we're just keeping on with our mission. I think the other thing with that mission is if we were just motivated by having practice management software, that would be fine, but we're motivated by something more, which is making healthcare better. And so that means we have to satisfy practitioners, satisfy patients, and build a better healthcare system. And so that's enabled us to, I think, create a better business than if we were just about practice management software.
Yeah.
No, you absolutely. It's a high bar you've set yourself, Alison, but we continue to wish you luck and support with it. Thank you very, very much for joining us today. Halaxy, it's a terrific business. You have a lot to be proud of, and we'd be very keen to check in again in a little while to see how it goes from here.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for having me, and good luck with the show.
See you.
Well, she's doing okay.
Amazing. I love the backpacker story.
That is the best thing I've ever heard in my
But
life.
also just the numbers stack up for that business. So they are really kicking goals.
130 countries, that's not nothing.
No.
And just think about the language barriers and some of the challenges, and in a pretty competitive market. So that's fantastic. I think that covers us today. That was all right.
We did it. We got there.
That was all right. Did we actually solve anything about mission today at all?
No, but I think that thankfully, Alison, we did well by picking such an excellent guest to
She
actually
carried us.
Well, because it is a mission-based business and it is working to have a strong mission. So I think we've proven our point that it's important, but we didn't
prove anything. Alison proved her point.
We haven't resolved how you actually get there. So I think that's something to talk about. If that's something that you know about and you've done well in your business,
Tell us.